Hello, this should be me live. Let me just do my tweet to put us all live. So for the playback, when this gets on its playback, what I'm gonna talk about today, I don't know how long I'm gonna talk today, because like I'm a bit tired. I've had a busy day working, but yeah. So today what I'm gonna largely talk about is just some random shit, whatever pops up. Probably gonna talk about Laurence Fox and his claim of cancellation. Laurence Fox, obviously, if you're familiar with my videos, the guy who I used as an example for white privilege, because he's very anti-white, anti the concept of white privilege, as in he doesn't believe it exists, and yeah, so I'm gonna talk about him, his radicalization to the right, and the idea of being cancelled by your friends on Twitter, by blocking them. I'm gonna talk about the ongoing disaster of climate change, and take a hard right turn and talk about the ongoing disaster of climate change and the sky turning red in California. I'm going to talk about Tories thinking that they are that they're not crazy, that they're not nuts, and specifically Anna Soubry, who's famous for having left the Tory party, and is now claiming that it used to be good, when of course that's false. And after that, maybe talk a bit about the potential increasing authoritarian nature of neoliberalism as a style of governmentality, especially in the wake of the coronavirus, and particular government responses to the coronavirus is something that we should have to resist, is that authoritarianism. And if I've got time, I'm going to talk about this silly person Russ, the one who I believe, Russ on Twitter, the Russ in Cheshire guy, the one who I believe had the problem with sending explicit messages to women on Twitter, has come out with a very interesting take about the about the UK having never never broken international law, or breaking international law being a sort of strange thing for the UK. But yeah, if anyone can hear me, let me know if the one person who's currently here now can hear me, let me know in the chat. If not, then don't know what to tell you. Hopefully you should be able to hear me. Mic's working. Also, like, if anyone's got, I'm very open to questions, just talking about random shit. If anyone wants to, hey, thanks Stephanie. Stephanie Beverly, loud and clear. So any questions or anything that you'd like to derail the conversation with, just let me know, because just being chill right now, just staying chill, talking about random shit. Just gonna post that I'm going live on a few different things there, and then we'll get to it. Just give me a sec. Sorry, just 1 second, and then I'll be back and talking again. Oh, okay. So, I guess I might as well just start talking. First, gonna open my beer. It's been a long day. I've been doing a bit of work on reading about human rights social movements and Marxist social movements for my lit review of my PhD, which is so my brain's a bit frazzled. But so right now, forgive me if I'm a bit distracted. But we might as well just start. And the main sort of narrative that's been going on online today has obviously been, if you're in the UK, has been Laurence Fox, C-list actor, talking about how his actor friend has cancelled him after being after just saying that she didn't want to talk to him about random stuff. Let's just bring that tweet up now, because among other things, it's very funny. So here, Laurence Fox. This this is the most painful cancellation I have had yet. From someone I spent 10 happy years working with, many lovely family dinners and lots of laughs. Someone I thought was a friend. Hashtag all lives matter. You know, that should be your first alarm bell if you're not immediately familiar with Laurence Fox and his particular oeuvre these days. But then he shared private text messages, which is, you know, oh hi Sinan, thanks, here to cancel me. I thought you would not be able to make it to cancel me today. Never mind. If anyone wants to clip me saying hashtag all lives matter and then cancel me, go right ahead. I'm immune to your cancellations. Because to be cancelled, you must first be a thing, and I'm not a thing yet. Yeah. So here's what's he said. Rebecca Front saying, let them have a fucking slogan. There are many things we clearly disagree on, and fond as I am of you, looking at your Twitter feed, I just felt uncomfortable about the company you're keeping. I'm sorry, I wish you and your lovely boys well. We'll just have to agree to differ. And, you know, that's a very serious cancellation there. You know, when someone's been so cancelled that, oh, you can't read the text? Oh, never, Tom Hill can't read the text. Oh well, I read it out. Basically, yeah. Sorry, Tom. I'll read out the text again. It doesn't really matter. Basically, she's saying, I'm sorry that you feel this way, but like stop being kind of mad. And then sort of blocked him because he's keeping right wing company on Twitter, and in his mind this is a cancellation. Oh, okay. So Tom Hill wasn't in 720p. No worries. I'll just keep it on there actually. And she blocked him. And the interesting thing about this, I was saying earlier, like, it is kind of sad. Like, clearly Laurence Fox is a dick. Has been around, like, being cancelled. Like, that seems to be his big thing. He had that song which said, they want to murder your opinion. That was the name of it was like a main line in this song he released, which, by the way, if you've not heard Laurence Fox's music, I mean, I would say I recommend looking it up, but I don't, because it's kind of beautifully terrible. It's like, if anyone's familiar with the Edinburgh Festival, it's like if someone's at the Edinburgh Festival and you know that they're just sort of there at their last gasp of trying to become famous, like someone in their late 30s, early 40s, and they just sort of, you know that they're on their last gasp. so yeah, he released this song that said they're trying to murder your opinion. But he sort of became radicalised, Laurence Fox, by right-wing YouTube, and he started regurgitating all of these right-wing talking points from like Sargon of Akkad and stuff. Like literally, he's what happens if you get divorced and then end up falling down a right-wing rabbit hole. He's the product of the product of a YouTube rabbit hole, essentially. Sorry, I'm just had a wee drink there, just from had a wee beer. It's been a long day. So yeah, I think there's an interesting thing about this sort of cancelling is like cancelling has now become. I think this might represent the sort of moment at which the term cancelling finally loses all sort of conceptual clarity as a concept. Because for a while, like, cancelling, I don't think it really means much. There are people on the left, I know, not to pass any judgment on his book, obviously, because it's not out and I've not read it, but Ben Burgess is releasing that book, Cancelling Comedians as the World Burns, clearly indicating that cancellation is an issue that's worth talking about. And there's like maybe something to the idea that there's a puritanical trend within the left, within some aspects of the left, which, I don't know, can be like the no true leftist fallacy, or no true Scotsman, but for leftists. But I don't really think it's been a huge problem. I don't think it's been something that really needs to take all that much effort in talking about. Like you occasionally get a student who tries to get like a university lecturer fired because they did something that wasn't particularly correct or whatever. They didn't that one that was going around a while of a student who was trying to get their lecturer fired because they didn't include enough people of colour in the authors of their curriculum, and like, what happened there? Like that's not great, but the guy wasn't fired, nothing happened. So what's really the material reality of cancel culture? I don't know. At this point it seems to have been taken up as a sort of like culture war cudgel to be used to, I almost said kludgy there, that's the word my dad uses for the toilet. Cudgel is what I meant. Sinan saying, I may even be doing a stream on cancel culture. When is that stream? And you should put your link to your Twitch in the chat for anyone here who's not following Sinan already. He does good streams. Tom Hell, freedom of speech does not mean freedom of from consequences. Yeah, but I don't even know if like cancel culture as a concept seems to become so far removed from the idea of free speech that it just seems to be just a thing. Like this idea that that a guy's old friend, old work colleague, blocking them because she didn't like that he was palling around with what is like just outright white supremacists. I know, because I've had them in my mentions on Twitter all day. Essentially, just like white supremacists. I can understand why someone would be like, yeah, I don't want to interact with that, I'm blocking that now. But then to frame that as being cancelled, and that cancelling, there's an interesting thing, like an individualistic like sort of expression of being cancelled in his tweet, like falling out with someone is being cancelled by them, which is just very funny, as well as the kind of interesting, like so individualized. Now it's no longer cancel culture, it's just cancel-ing. I've just been cancelled. Like I can't believe the barman cancelled me by not serving me one more drink. It's a nightmare. Can't believe the bouncer cancelled me by not letting me in. Fuck, you can tell I miss going out. The two examples of things in real life that can be cancelled are, for me, would be not being served and not being let in a bar. Fucking hell, I need to get out of this house. Jesus. saying the date is up in the air, but it's penciled in for the 20th. Also, we're debating new metal on the 18th. Yeah, new metal. I have no opinions on that at all. Um, I no idea. Uh, yeah, good. Enjoy it though. Might be fun. Um, yeah. So I think this idea of cancellation then has clearly become um, uh, a a, a, a culture war weapon. That's just a word that's thrown around in case like just to fire up some random shit on Twitter or whatever. Oh, something bad's happened to me. That's cancel culture. Anything bad happened to me is the left, and the left is cancel culture. And in a way, I can see the argument from left people saying like, "Oh, we need to take the reins of like the narrative reins, um, of cancel culture, so that we can like define what's going on." And I think that's something that left should probably be active in doing. It's like culture war stuff. You have to sort of be aware of it and be ready to fight against it, or else it'll get away from you and end up this weird mutant thing. What's Tom Hill? Have you downloaded the Track and Trace Scotland app today? According to the stats, around 300,000 people have downloaded it since this afternoon. Decent figures. I haven't. I didn't realise it was out today. I should probably download it. Yeah, especially if I want to go out anytime soon. But I've not got any plans to leave the house right now. I don't know many people up in Scotland anymore since like, well, at least not in Edinburgh. Like most of my friends live in Glasgow or London. So the next time next time I leave the house, I'll download the Track and Trace app. We'll see where that goes. If we're ever allowed out of the house again. Sinan, I never took you for a metalhead, John. Yeah, I was never much of a metalhead. I like sort of I like Alice in Chains and stuff is maybe the heaviest I'd get. Stuff like, Rage Against the Machine. I like some heavier stuff, but I'm not a metalhead. I don't have the hair for it. Sinan, I ran out of milk. Cancel culture. Yeah, I can't believe the cows have cancelled it. Tom Hill, yeah. What's Glasgow like? Glasgow's still in its lockdown right now, or sort of semi lockdown. I've got my brother's girlfriend, and I've got a bunch of friends from uni who live there right now. Sinan, Tom, yeah, Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains, good. Yeah, I like Alice in Chains, like Pearl Jam. Who else? Heavy bands do I like? I like Queens of the Stone Age, but they're definitely more hard rock than heavy metal. Queens of the Stone Age are actually probably my favourite band, because they're fucking great. Yeah. Anyway, that's probably enough talking about cancel culture, because it's essentially bullshit. It's nice to dunk on the incredibly divorced energy of Laurence Fox, and that I've yet to discern whether or not he became this like right wing, radicalized Sargon of Akkad stan before or immediately after his divorce. Because he simultaneously got like incredibly bald energy and incredibly divorced energy, and it's hard to like find the causal factor there, because correlation doesn't equal causation, so you need to sort of find an empirical link between the baldness and the divorcedness of that energy. Let's move on to talk about something else, something a bit more interesting. The impending climate disaster. Queens of the Stone Age got booed at download when you went. How's that? Queens of the Stone Age are fucking great. What was everyone pissed off at Queens of the Stone Age for? Being one of the best bands around? Or maybe because Josh Homme is a bit of a tit. Tom Hill, he's doing it for clout, can't get the attention with his bad acting, so he turns to politics. See, I'm not convinced by that. I've had a few people say that. I don't think that's the case, because lots of people can't get attention with their bad acting. And like, even if it was trying to get attention for bad acting, the idea that you would then be like, oh, I think it's an acceptable thing to do then to start talking about how white privilege isn't real, and start talking to Julia Hartley Brewer about misusing Martin Luther King quotes to promote some sort of weird semi-racist, like weird racial agenda. You'd have to have some degree of radicalization to think that was acceptable thing to do. Like, even if you're just in it for the money, clearly, if you think that it's acceptable to spread like racist propaganda for money, you're pretty radicalized. So, I don't know. I'm not convinced by the idea that he's just doing it for attention. Especially if it's now losing him friends. Like, if he was just doing it for attention, I could see him toning it down if he started losing friends. But I don't know. When you start like torpedoing your personal life for these weird culture war agendas, then clearly you're not just doing it for clout. Sinan saying, Queens of the Stone Age were booed for being there and not being metal enough. I mean, I guess so. Download though, I'm sure Muse have played at Download before, and they're hardly like fucking metal, aren't they? Has Download not had like some like hip hop and stuff played at it before? I guess if people are waiting for Rammstein, that's the crowd who want the metal. Alright, so moving on to the impending climate disaster. We of course have Barack Obama. I don't know if anyone's heard of Barack Obama. He clearly didn't has never been in any position in power, because he tweets here, "The fires across the West Coast are just the latest example of the very real ways our changing climate is changing our communities. Protecting our planet is on the ballot. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does." And of course, he couldn't have possibly have been in any position to have changed anything, because that might have made this tweet look a bit silly, maybe ring a bit hollow. Because if he'd been like, you'd think if he'd maybe had any power, any position on power, maybe, I don't know, maybe, let's just say, let's do Ben Shapiro and do a let's say. Let's say this Barack Obama guy was, I don't know, the most powerful man on the planet for 8 years maybe, and he then didn't do anything to really significantly curb the climate catastrophe that's resulted in the sky literally turning red. And then he tweeted out something like, "Protecting our planet is on the ballot. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does." That might seem, I don't know, a bit in bad taste, because vote for who in this case? Not to get into the electoralism thing again, like we were talking on Sinan's stream with Elijah and Nate and Peter Coffin, because let's not relitigate electoralism. But it's not a good argument in your favour to say vote for your life depends on it, because it does, when your life, when previously you were the person people voted for and you did fuck all to really curb the impending climate catastrophe that's turning the fucking sky red. What I will be annoyed at though is that if it turns out that global warming was just a really long, drawn out gender reveal, because we know how these things can go at this point. Someone's gender reveal party has been to blow up the world. It would be very 2020. But, so it's, I mean, the idea that you can vote out climate change is quite an interesting one. It's sort of is falling into the liberal imagination that everything can be solved within the current system of things just with correct policy, rather than the more systemic thing that climate change will be impossible to deal with unless you, at the very least, substantially alter capitalism, which would require a massive strategy of degrowth within the quote-unquote developed world, while less developed, again, quote-unquote, states are able to build up industrial capacity. But that seems unlikely at this point, without massive collective action against the state. You have people like not the BNP, fucking hell, BP. That's what a Freudian slip that was. BP and the BNP. With B using their using all the money that they got from the British state to invest in renewable energies. Turned out, I think it was just last week, a story was revealed that BP used all that money, which was given to them by the British state, to invest in renewables, and they used it to find new ways to make oil and gas more profitable. So that's policy wonking is not going to work. Nose off left. Red flame is a boy colour. That sounds pretty essentialist to me. Who knows what this what the great period of gender reveal warming since the Industrial Revolution is going to reveal. It could be anything. I'm excited to see the climax. If anyone's interested in things on degrowth, a good author on that is Jason Hickel. His book, The Divide, is very good. I recently read that. It's the colonial extraction of wealth throughout history, and the way that the Western countries gained all of their wealth by stealing it and then creating a political and economic system which maintained that theft, and how that is tied to the process of global warming, and how without any substantive action through degrowth and or restructuring of economic systems, will reach 4 degrees warming by 2100, and the massive human cost of that. At the start of the book, it says that this isn't the Divide. He says that this is an ultimately uplifting story. That's a lie. It's not. But it's a really good book, well worth read, and he does a lot of work on degrowth and how degrowth might work, on what it might look like. And there are some cases right now. China has started looking into it. I believe they've decoupled GDP as an economic indicator of progress right now, which is interesting, which is interesting stuff from China. But the problem, I think, for Western countries, the UK and the US, is that in order to, what strategies will we need to use to get through to implement a system of degrowth that isn't authoritarian like the Chinese one. And I think that's going to need some very careful planning and some strong organisational will to ensure that we have structures that aren't going to be authoritarian. And interesting things from the I'm going to do some hauntology now, from the Labour 2019 manifesto. The Green Industrial Revolution would have included things like taking taking energy companies into private hands, but also decentralizing and democratizing them. And that's the sort of thing that I think could be very beneficial to ensuring we can get to a degrowth situation while building anti-authoritarian structures into that goal as well. So now I'm saying, yeah, China dropped the GDP goal. Yeah, I thought they had. My brain works with vague ideas of what people have done. I generally need to check things quite a lot before I actually commit to what they've actually said, which is why I would not be very good at debating. I would not be a good debater because I'd be like, I'm not sure if this is the case, but I'm sure I heard somewhere that maybe something like China maybe dropped the GDP goal. Maybe I don't think they're committing to degrowth. I don't think that they did that full commitment yet, but I know that they dropped the GDP goal. Oh man, I made the mistake of watching I watched a Thought Slime video. Not the mistake wasn't watching a Thought Slime video. Thought Slime is great. I like Thought Slime, but I watched the video he did on Destiny, and just made me anytime I see Destiny, I just sort of, the guy that just irrationally irritates me so much. He's the sort of guy who would who'd look at this Barack Obama tweet and say, yes, this is what we do. There's no other way of dealing with things. Get to the ballot box and vote. Maybe apply to your state for a permit to protest, and then you too can do a protest, government sanctioned protest against the government, and maybe they'll be encouraged to do some more more positive action. Sinan saying, John, become the debate bro challenge. It will never happen. I've done a couple of debates in real life. I'm sure I've talked about this on stream before. I've done a couple of debates in real life as it's like a function of a previous role I had in a previous life as a vice chair of an NGO. I did debates, but the debate it was a secular organisation, and the debates that I took part in were always things like, this house believes religion is wrong, and I'd be there not to debate. Like, I wouldn't be there going, oh yes, I believe this. I'd normally be there going, I don't believe this, even though I would lose the debate because I wasn't there to win a debate. I was there to get my point across and spread the work that the NGO did. And in that way, I don't think I'd be very good at doing internet debates, which are all about winning and not about expanding or exploring ideas, and it's just boring to me. Sinan saying, God, I do not like Riley. Then sorry, I'm not being able to read your name. Nozzle Fleft. Did you see him on Riley's stream, Sinan? Sinan, reckon we can get Destiny get on my stream and I can own him with facts and logic. I mean, it won't matter because he'll say you don't understand economics. Oh my god, lefties, they just don't understand economics. It's from a guy who has the sort of economic literacy of a fucking Labrador, and it's talking about leftists not understanding economics. He's just, it's this. I've figured out Destiny's I'm going on a rant at this point. Destiny's whole thing is that he says what he thinks in a really confident manner, and he then builds into these what he thinks is a coherent position. He then builds really specific hypotheticals which have no bearing on the reality of the world, and then sort of extrapolates from that he might be right. So the one he used in the Thought Slime video was talking to non-compete. He was saying, what would you do in a situation of in an anarchist situation where there's more white people in a factory than black people, and the white people want to do racist action. And obviously that's not like a valid argument against sort of an anarchist idea of of a society, because it's very specific and removes it all of context. So you could say in that position, well, there's nothing we can do. There's tyranny of the majority over the minority, so therefore anarchist orders of production are invalid because they can't combat racism. But first of all, no anarchist would say reordering production would end racism, so that's not a good argument to make against anarchism. And secondly, devoiding anything of context like that is not a legitimate argument. It doesn't follow anything. It's like a similar thing could be said. What if you've got a racist boss in a capitalist factory who promotes racist things, and then Destiny would say, well, there's laws, and you go, well, you didn't give any wider context to the anarchist situation and your hypothetical situation, so why should there be wider context to your situation if you want to get into nitty-gritty hypotheticals? But of course he wouldn't do that, because like that's not how you that would be to bring in wider context would be to explore an idea, not to win a debate. And yeah, I don't like it at all. Sorry, I fell behind this chat there doing my rant about Destiny. No, so Flip, it was about Rittenhouse, that debate he did on justifying Rittenhouse murdering those people. Yeah, that was disgusting. And he's still standing by that. He's still standing by that idea that Rittenhouse was justified in murdering those people. And the way he does that is exactly what I was just talking about. I saw him debate the serfs about this, and it's the same thing. He strips everything of its wider context and gets right down to a complete hypothetical situation which has no bearing on the wider reality of the situation. So to say, he says, this is a guy who's got a gun who's chased by someone. Is then he allowed to shoot the person? Is he then allowed to murder someone if it's just a guy who's got a gun and is being chased? And in that situation you could say, yeah, maybe they are. But that doesn't relate to the situation in which someone who has clearly got a whole load of baggage with Blue Lives Matter stuff, which I will say does indicate white supremacist leanings. If you're a Blue Lives Matter person, I don't see how you could reasonably say that isn't an indication of a white supremacist worldview, at least a likely white supremacist worldview. To say that person then goes into a town armed, wearing rubber gloves, and parades around the place wanting to be a police officer in a cultural context in which police officers are generally seen of as being allowed to shoot people in defence of things, especially if you're a Blue Lives Matter person, and then that person murders, is it 2 or 3 people? I can't remember. To then say that person wasn't responsible for the deaths of those people is such a wild leap in logic that the only way that I could see you can reasonably get to that leap is if you have underlying political leanings which say that the protests or whatever, the riots, are illegitimate. And I think that's the only conclusion you could come to regarding Destiny's attacks on the people that Rittenhouse killed. Not even the attacks on people that Rittenhouse killed. That's probably not fair. But the attacks on the people claiming that he's murdered. And he had that whole stream where he was like that he was that it would be legitimate for rednecks to go on and gun down rioters, as if that's like a legitimate thing to say or think. He annoys me. Was that the Sinan saying the that's why? Oh, sorry. And Nozofle, I agree with you, John, about debate bros not productive, just whiny, just whinny. Yeah, I don't understand the point of them. Sarah Z had a really good video on debate, where because she is she's involved with university debating. It's like actual debate competitions, and it's like a thing about people who are actually into real life debate is that they recognize that debate isn't a useful way of discerning which opinions or which things are correct or incorrect. It's just about like who can think of the most common or most powerful arguments and who has the best rhetorical techniques in this particular situation. So you can like win debates arguing positions that you don't believe at all, and it's like it's not that difficult. It's just like a skill that you learn. But there's an idea that you think there's an idea that like debate is this great thing that will, I don't know, discern what's correct and what's incorrect. And if you lose a debate, therefore your view is incorrect, rather than maybe you just didn't present it in the correct way, or maybe someone had a piece of information which you thought was relevant in the moment but turned out not to be. And that's something I've noticed Destiny does, because he has a large chat which feeds him information, and his debate with Ben Burgess. Sorry about this. Like my lockdown, I'd never heard of or seen Destiny before like March, but in lockdown, I've sort of YouTube has flared up for me. I saw his debate with Ben Burgess, and he produced information which he claimed was relevant to his point, and then Ben Burgess looked at it after the debate, and like none of it was relevant to his point or to the debate. But like you can present the information and say, see, this disproves your point, and in the context of the debate you might have won, but in the context of reality you've just thrown a graph at someone and said, there. Nose off left, do you think debate bros have their place on the left? I think there is some value in so I think in terms of something like when Vosh debates fascists, I think there's value in humiliating fascists, and I think a lot of what fascism or like these hard right sort of populism, a lot of it has like this culture of machismo and of winning surrounding it. So if you have someone who can make like a figure in that movement look silly, then that's, I think, could be valuable. And I think in some ways, like I have a much more tempered opinion on people like Vosh than I see lots of people on the left have. I think he can be brash and like say silly things and try to justify voting Joe Biden by quoting Lenin and Marx, which is obviously silly. But in terms of like debating, I think when he's best is when he's debating like the fascists, that like outright fascists. And I think the reason he is best doing that is not because like it proves anything about left ideas or the validity of the ideas he's saying, but because that there's such a culture of winning and machismo around fascism that if you're made to look silly, then that in itself can make the image that a lot of these like real right wingers project. It can make that look really silly. So I think that's where the value of debate bros as a concept is on the left, and like people like Vosh are useful for that, I think. And the same done with Jangles the Science Lad. He's quite good. He went on a debate with Milo Yiannopoulos, and he just made him look silly, and he made him look kind of pathetic, and there wasn't much like elucidation of any ideas in any like in Vosh, in any Vosh debate, or in any like, or in that debate of Jangles the Science Lad. There wasn't like, he didn't elucidate the ideas that he was defending in any great sense. He basically just said this is really basic stuff that most people understand. It was about white fragility, and he was like, yeah, this is basic stuff people understand. I don't need to defend it all that much. And Milo Yiannopoulos just had no idea what to do, and he looked really silly, and that's probably where the benefit of debate as a concept comes in, and it's not really debate that's the main driver of that. It's just making someone look a bit silly. The risk, of course, is that works in the opposite direction as well. So if you have someone who goes on like from the left, and someone who goes in on the left and looks silly, then like the right, with their obsession with machismo and of winning, get like more ammunition to, further their opinions of. So if you look really silly in a debate, it can undermine your cause. So that's why I wouldn't ever. One of the reasons I wouldn't ever go. Two reasons I wouldn't go in a debate. One, I don't think I'm not that interested in them because they don't elucidate any concepts. I don't think they're particularly useful for things that I'm interested in. And two, I might look silly, and that might ultimately harm the causes that I care about. Nose of left in place of coffin. No, it wasn't in place of coffin. That was, I think, Destiny was put in place of coffin for that thing. It was in an event before Peter Coffin, when it was just an online debate. I didn't see the one with Destiny and Milo because that's too much. It'd be too much for my psyche to take. I would not enjoy that. Sinan saying, "Lol, thanks to you, I know how all these people are." Yeah, sorry about that. Nose of left. Yeah, I think that happened with Coffin and Destiny. I've heard that. I've not seen. I couldn't speak to it because I've not seen the debate. But yeah, if Coffin was beaten in a debate by Destiny, it obviously doesn't say anything about the validity of the ideas that Coffin was espousing, just like the rhetorical efficiency of Destiny in that situation. And you get, if you're not used to it, you get flustered and you get angry and you don't make your points well. And even if you go in with even if you're not flustered or you are used to debate, and you go into one with just a different conception of what you're going to do there, like for example, in the debate, in one of the debates I did in real life at Edinburgh University, it was a really good event because it was a panel of 4 people who had very different opinions, and it was just a discussion, and we just got to talk about the ideas that we represented, and we got to chat with the audience about what they represented and question each other, and we were all going in there with like huge amounts of good faith, and that was really great. But if one of us had been there with a completely different intent to go in there and to destroy with facts and logic other ideas, then we would have ended up it would have been a mess, and it would have made everyone look kind of silly. So yeah, Sinan, yeah, I think it's good that you don't do debates. The panel discussions are much more productive and much more fun. It's just a better environment to have a group of people just talking like in good faith with each other about ideas, rather than mediate. It's worse when you watch an online debate and they have a mediator. That's when you know it's not going to be great, because if you need a mediator to have your conversation, you're not going to have a great conversation. Nose of left, have you ever read Schopenhauer's Art of Controversy? Seems similar to your view on debate. I haven't read it, but I will note it down. 1 second. I will note it down and give it a read when I have time to read anything out of my out of the realms of my current reading. I might do a video on debate at some point, because I end up talking about it on stream a lot, and it's just kind of, I feel like it's got I've got a lot of opinions that I need to get off my chest, and maybe putting it in a long form essay with more thought might be more useful than just ranting about Destiny on stream every now and again when he pisses me off. Oh god, I hate my computer. It's so slow. So this all started with me talking about Barack Obama and vote like your life depends on it. Yeah. I guess we'll move on from the impending climate catastrophe, which is what I was talking about there, and not fucking like 20 minutes talking about Destiny. Sinan, yeah, I don't want us to be talking past each other. Yeah, it's just not it's not helpful to anyone. And as much as people on the left get, the left gets accused of being simultaneously puritanical and also fractured. Sorry, can you hear me again? My connection dropped. I don't know why that happened. If you can hear me again, just let me know in the chat. Yep. All right. Brilliant. Yeah, Sina, I think your Twitch channel is useful because it I think you could do some really useful things there, bringing together lots of people with different opinions and building thought, as well as disagreements which are interesting disagreements which build interesting things on top of it. Like the interesting thing about our the panel the other week was that I don't think everyone fully agreed, but everyone agreed enough and disagreed in interesting ways that built on top of each other. I think that's a really interesting way of doing of doing things. Sean McNutt, the being puritanical causes the fracturing. Certain takes of leftism become dogmatic and do not accept critiques of their ideology. Yeah, I mean, I think that's common throughout all aspects of all parts of the political spectrum. But I do think there's a lot. There's a degree of emphasis on left-wing puritanicalism. More than greater than the problem. Famous stupid tweets go viral, and people forget every time that there's a stupid tweet goes viral, people forget that one of the reasons that it goes viral is because lots of people are saying this is dumb, this is stupid. So I don't think the left is as puritanical or as fractured as it is presented, but I think things like cultures of debate make them more fractured. I think if you can build a culture of such a normie take, but if you can build a culture of just honest communication with each other, then it really does help, I think. And it would I think combat that the puritanicalness and fracturingness of the left. If you can find what you agree on more than what you disagree on, even if you disagree on some fundamental things, then I think that's really helpful. Anyway, moving on from Destiny Duncan, let's go on to some Tory Duncan, because I enjoyed this tweet from Anna Soubry. For anyone, any international watcher or listener, Anna Soubry is former member of the Conservative Party who left in 2018, I believe, to start a new political party, the Independent Group, formerly known as Change UK, the Independent Group, formerly known as Change UK, formerly known as CUC, formerly that's not a joke, and various other things. And the Conservative Party because of their EU stance, because they decided to leave the EU, and she just couldn't stand for that anymore. And this tweet here, Anna Soubry, talking about the Conservative Party breaking international law, says, I feel the need to apologise for a party I was once very proud to be a member of. The Conservative Party has lost its moral compass, is run by people who lie as easily as they take a breath, and which is turning our great country into dishonourable international laughingstock. Was it 2019 that the independent group said it's 2019 that they went? Fucking hell, that seems so long ago. How is that only 2019? Have I fallen through time? What the my face right now is fucking Matt Damon at the end of Saving Private Ryan. I've just aged 500 years. Fucking hell, February 2019. That was only 18 months ago. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. Oh god. Anyway, Anna Soubry. Here's what she had about Cameron-era austerity. And let's remember she left because of the EU. Remember the EU referendum? 2016, that was 4 fucking years ago. Jesus Christ. Took a big drink of beer. Oh god, yeah, that got morbid. Yep. That's got morbid. And then let's talk about Cameron-era austerity. So Anna Soubry heaps praise on Cameron-era austerity as she joins former Labour MPs and new centrist group. Oh fucking hell, yeah, you're right. 20 February 2019. There they are. Jesus. Former Tory MP Anna Soubry today heaped praise on the austerity imposed on the country under David Cameron as she teamed up with ex-Labour MPs in new Commons grouping. The ex-minister said the coalition government did a marvellous job and argued that cuts to the public services masterminded by George Osborne were absolutely necessary at the time. She made the comments while the former Labour MPs looked on at press conference to herald her departure alongside 2 ex-Tory colleagues from Conservative ranks. Miss Soubry, Heidi Allen and Dr Sarah Wollaston dramatically resigned the Tory whip, saying the pro-Brexit hard right was controlling the party from top to toe. They join ex-Labour figures Chuka Umunna, Luciana Berger, Chris Leslie, or as we all know him in my videos, Piss Leslie. Let's hear that again. Piss Leslie. And Milk Gapes. And the ones that no one cares about. Asked during the press conference today if the Tory MPs still backed the economic record of the Tories, Miss Soubry said the coalition tie-up with the Lib Dems between 2000 and 2015 did the right thing. I think the coalition government, which I served in, did a marvellous job, and one of the reasons it did that is because it was 2 parties working together, she insisted. Christopher Leslie, as Sinan was calling. It was not so saying, I thought in 2016, well, it can't get worse than this. Yeah, everyone's been... I was thinking about this the other week. Everyone's been saying this is the worst year ever since 2016, and there's got to come a breaking point, because everyone's sort of got. Remember in 2016, it was like, this has just been a piss year. What a load of shite this year's been. And then 2017 came along, like there was the Labour victory, and everyone was like, that was good. Well, victory. There was the Labour improvement in 2016, but it was like, yeah, that's good. But then the world continued to get shit. And for like the next few years, everyone's just been like, fucking hell, this is shit. The end of 2019, as I was, like December 2019, as I was fucking crying, drinking whiskey in my 2-foot wide London bedroom, and I thought, things can't get any worse than this. Watching, and then 2020 started. So, things can only get shitter. Can only get shitter. Oh God. She added, I think the things we did to the economy were absolutely necessary at the time. I don't have a problem with that. She admitted there had been difficulties. and noted local councils had suffered, but argued the country was at risk of running a dangerous deficit if it had not acted at the time. But her colleague, Heidi Allen, appeared to take a different stance to it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Oh, hi, John. Yeah, thanks for joining right there. This is the karaoke stream in which I drink beer and sing fucking Brian Cox songs to the to the crowd. Yeah, so let's talk about austerity for a bit. After singing Things Can Only Get Shitter. So let's the first claim I think that's worth dealing with is she admitted there would be difficulties, the dangerous deficit. The country was at risk of running a dangerous deficit if it had not acted in time. Now, this is a lie. Before austerity, the deficit of the UK was not particularly high. It was around the same. It was at the same rate as. Sorry, my OBS disconnected for a second there again, because I live in the worst internet place in the world, Scotland. Thanks, Sinan. Yeah. So what is interesting about austerity is a lot of it was justified on one paper. I can't remember the authors of the paper at this point. I've got it noted down in my notes somewhere. But it's based on one paper, which argued that making these huge big cuts to public services would stimulate growth in a huge number of ways. But the thing is that paper was discredited not just on like theoretical grounds, but because it had empirical mistakes in its accounting. It just fucked up its Excel spreadsheets, and that was known before austerity was put into practice. George Osborne cited this paper in one of his justifications for austerity, and people, that paper was foundationally broken. Yeah, it was like, it wasn't. Oftentimes, when you're criticising like right-wing papers, you've got to pick apart like the underlying assumptions, the underlying theories behind them before you can get to the reasons why they're wrong. This paper was just empirically wrong, which is great. It's so good to have started like fucking 10 years of cutbacks to services that have potentially killed or shortened the lives of hundreds of thousands of people because of an accounting error, which is so. But remember that that Anna Soubry, who was proud of this record of the electric guy murdering disabled people because you can't do maths. Things can only get better. But it was marvellous because it was two parties working together, according to Anna Soubry, which of course the independent group was as well. And if they could achieve the dizzying heights of murdering disabled people, then there's nothing they couldn't do. The other aspect, I mean, if you want to pick apart austerity, the real thing austerity achieved was to further deepen aspects of neoliberal governmentality through things like the universal credit, increasing the individual responsibilisation effects of universal credit of the welfare system, constraining services and selling off services. There was a report by the NGO We Own It on the massive levels of privatisation that occurred in the NHS under austerity, much of which has had a massive impact on the coronavirus response, like the privatisation of procurement of PPE, which was outsourced to private companies. And then obviously we had the massive PPE crisis, which the annoying thing about that was that even after that happened, the response the government had to the PPE shortage was to further privatise NHS supply chains, and it's like saying, "Oh, I've got shit on my shoe. Might as well take a shit on that shoe myself," because does that analogy hold? I don't know if that analogy holds, but fuck it, I'll stick with it. But it's good. It's good to know that Anna Soubry is proud of that record, but as soon as the government, becomes a laughing stock, that's when the issue really took off for her. That's when she really couldn't stand it anymore. Do you want to talk about more authoritarian strands of neoliberalism for a bit, and then we'll maybe call it a night after that? I think maybe go until about 9:30. Sean McNutt, a friend of mine, wrote a paper on the effects of NGOs on revolutionary action and their use to stifle said action because an entity already handles that aspect of the need. That sounds really interesting. It's quite a... yeah, that sounds interesting. There's quite a lot written on the sort of neoliberalizing structures of NGOs. And I can understand, I can understand that perspective from, say, my own personal work experience, because before I went started my PhD, I was working in an organisation, a welfare rights charity, and that welfare rights charity was basically picking up the slack for the welfare rights system. So it performed, it helped people essentially do their ESA, their PIP, their universal credit forms. It helped people who were in bankruptcy, and it performed the role of citizens advice bureaus, but with more time and more ability to do so, because citizens advice are really underfunded, and advisors don't have much time to do anything. But without that organisation, the welfare rights system in the area of Glasgow that it was wouldn't have worked. You would have had people, huge numbers of people, just like unable to function and probably dying. We used to get people who'd it was quite a difficult job. People would die quite regularly, clients and stuff, because everyone was like really, it was a really deprived area, and a lot of the time getting your welfare takes a lot of time, and people would die during the process. So if we weren't there and didn't provide some like semblance of support for those people, then maybe there would have been more social unrest because of it. I can see there being increasing social unrest in the wake of if the furlough scheme, the coronavirus furlough scheme, comes to a abrupt end and there's a massive increase of unemployment. The structures of universal credit aren't going to be able to cope with that. They could barely cope at the start of the coronavirus crisis, so they won't cope with huge levels of unemployment, especially if things like the claimant commitment and all of the special dispensations that universal credit has had during the pandemic are lifted. There's going to be people are going to be unable to claim their benefits. And I don't know, I think there might be some significant social unrest in that case. I think no self left. I think it's right for NGOs to meet need to mitigate crisis, but NGO incentives are self-maintaining, which does slow or halt changes. Yeah, I mean, I think that it is correct. I mean, it's good that the organisation I worked for was there, and it's good that that we could help people. But I understand that might have. Sean McNutt, it becomes a discussion on accelerationism, I guess, which is a slippery, awkward slope. Yeah, in particular context that I'm talking about, it would. I think there are other cases in which the presence of the NGO um, simply is one that inhibits change in a less accelerationist manner. I'd have to stop to think about what the context of that would be. But in the specific context in which my specific context of NGO work, it would the argument there becomes quite a accelerationist, which is not something that I would go in for either. Like I don't think the solution to an NGO existing in a place which if it didn't people would die is um, is to get rid of the NGO. I think the issue is then deal with the system, because I don't believe I'm not an accelerationist. I don't believe accelerationism is a valuable way of going forward. Like you're saying, like no self left. Only because I think change is possible without accelerationism. Yeah, you're right. I think that's the case as well. Um, uh, and I was talking about this in regard to I'm going to talk about my old job for a bit now because fuck it, it's interesting. Um, Maybe not, I'm not talking about acceleration because fuck it, I don't care about that. But not that's not directed at you, Sean McNutt. This is me thinking out loud. Um, so I was recently, I'd just a few weeks ago, I'd finished reading David Graeber's Bullshit Jobs, um, and rest in peace to that guy. What a legend he is. I was so excited to get stuck into more of his reading. It was such a sad thing that he died. But I was reading Bullshit Jobs, like a guy making a video using it. Oh, that's exciting. Um, I was thinking about doing the same, and specifically talking about my job because when I was about halfway through it, I tweeted him saying, talking about my job working in welfare rights and how working in that job, like the work that we did in an individual level, made a difference to people's lives. Without the organisation I worked for, people wouldn't get their benefits, and like I said, people would have died, and you made an individual difference. But like the whole process itself of having people come in to fill in forms, which then went to the DWP, who then rejected the benefit claim. Then you go for a mandatory reconsideration, and they reject it again. Then you go for a tribunal, and all this massive process, massive bureaucracy to essentially just stop people getting their benefits. And we went through that, and huge, massive cost, just to get one person their benefit. And and although you got like one, you improved like one person's life, you improved individuals' lives each time with this, you could see the system getting consistently worse and worse over time. And it made a lot of people incredibly stressed out, and it made high turnover rates in the organisation, also to do with how mismanaged the organisation was. And it made, like, when I was reading Bullshit Jobs and about halfway through, I was thinking that it was a sort of different, like, kind of bullshit job than the one he'd at that point conceptualized, because it was like this whole bullshit industry, this whole like misery industry that had been created with the exclusive purpose of in my view, to neoliberalize and to pursue a neoliberalized vision of welfare and of the individual. Um, and and then I got to the end of the book, and the very last thing in the last um, interview that he has is from a woman who works in welfare rights, and it was weird. It was like eerie to read that woman's writing on welfare rights, because it could have just been my words. She talked about exactly those things that I was talking about how the whole industry was created as a sort of bullshit industry that could easily be overturned, and easily be so many jobs could easily be lost if you just like made the welfare system easier to navigate. If you didn't have 40-page documents to apply for ESA and PIP, if you didn't have like massive universal credit documents, if people didn't get into £40,000 of credit card debt just to try and to pay their bills, then you wouldn't need this whole misery industry of welfare rights. And it was like something like kind of oddly eerie, comforting and discomforting about reading someone saying your exact words back at you on a book that was written a year before you wrote, but a year before you were in the job that you're complaining about. Yeah, but it was a interesting book, and it was very sad to hear of David Graeber's death. He was some man, some comrade. Oh well, I think I'll maybe give it a few more minutes on stream, and then I'll knock out and get my dinner. Feeling a bit hungry at this point. Last thing I had to talk about today was going to talk about the potential of curfew and increasing authoritarianness of governmentality during the crisis, and of neoliberalism, authoritarian neoliberalism as a whole. It's been something that I've been thinking about, and Sean McNutt. I feel like a large portion of capitalist economies could be removed without consequence. A lot of wasted labour on the mechanisation and maintenance of capital. Yeah, man, you should read Bullshit Jobs, because, insurance advertising, etc. Yeah, you should read Bullshit Jobs, because that's essentially Graeber's argument there, that that a lot of people basically do stuff that's worthless. My particular sort of loose theory on why this is the case is that huge amounts of like essential production, food production, not all, because there's still significant amount of Western production and food production in the US, but a lot of it has been exported abroad, and that's left space for like nonsense jobs in Western economies. And I think that in order to exist, the capitalist system obviously needs a consumer class, needs people who have money, and they also need people who aren't going to have a huge amount of time on their hands to maybe question the capitalist class. So I think, in a way, it's been like Bullshit Jobs have been a way to occupy workers which no longer have a role to play a significant role to play in the economy, while also maintaining a consumer class. You should read Bullshit Jobs. I will read Debt the First 5,000 Years. I will read that at some point when I have time among my increasing mountain of books and things that I need to read before I'm confident in saying anything. So I saw this YouGov poll saying 62% of Britons and all age ranges say they would support an introduction of a curfew between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. as a measure to prevent second coronavirus wave. And I think this is emblematic of the problem that we've had, the increasing problem of authoritarianism creeping up through Western governmentality. And I saw there was did we all see the Republican National Convention, that speech by Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend, in which she said she believes in Trump, believes in the American way, and believes in the concepts of individual and personal responsibility. Now, to me, that is absolute, like a red flag. Individual and personal responsibility, that is red flag of neoliberal ideology. The insight of the central insight of the essential ideological locus of neoliberal ideology is individualism, and making the individual, forcing the individual into being a particular kind of capitalist actor, one that's personally and individually responsible, entrepreneurial, competitive, and so on and so on. So when you have people who explicitly say they believe in far-right talking point, and then classical neoliberal talking point, that is an alarm bell to me that not only is an emergent sort of fascistic like movement or far-right movement moving forward in the US, but that far-right movement is explicitly born of the neoliberal ideologies. And I think that's something that we have to be... Oh, new subscriber, Lewis Isbell. Thank you, Lewis Isbell, for subscribing. I'm nearly at 900. Yeah, so I think this is something that we need to be very cognizant of. Things like supporting a curfew is something that, if you're on the left, you should be very, very cognizant of and very, very keen on rejecting. Because this idea of a curfew to stop coronavirus second wave is nonsense. Like, coronavirus doesn't stop during the day and only come out at night. It's not a vampire. Like, so this idea is just pure, like, children of men shite. And it has to be resisted at all costs. I talk about this sort of creeping authoritarianism a bit in a article that I'm trying to fucking finish. I'm really desperate to finish this article I'm trying to write and try and get into peer review. I talk about how there's an emergent authoritarian neoliberalism. I think it's present in the UK structures as well, and particularly in the government restructuring of restructuring loans being offered to universities, which has specific requirements not just on what courses could be taught, but in what should be having, in quote, commitment to free speeches, and what student unions should be funded. So I fell back in the chat, but I've read Debord, which kind of goes into it in the form of the spectacle. No Self Left, you sound like you've got split off. Thank you. There is always more to read. No Self Left, I think individual responsibility is a red flag, but the left don't do enough talk about choice and responsibility in order to reconceptualize it. I think in terms of choice and responsibility, the issue is not whether or not people have degrees of responsibility, because there's ways of conceptualizing responsibility that I think are useful for the left, like responsibility to each other, responsibility to communities, like different forms of responsibility. It's the way that individual responsibility is framed, and the presence of responsibility and a process called responsibilization, which exists through dominant neoliberal discourse. And it's like it's a very crucial piece of the puzzle of neoliberalism that a lot of particularly economists don't pick up on. A lot of the time, economists will say things like neoliberalism has ended. Neoliberalism no longer exists because of particular economic differences, because there's been government intervention in the economy. But those conceptualizations of neoliberalism are, I don't want to say wrong, but wrong, and they miss the central sort of ideological locus. The look correct, guys. So there's the spectre haunting capitalist realism. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I think I'll do. I think that's a stream. I think we'll call it there. Talked about I got a bit off track there, talking about debates and fucking Destiny for a while and singing "Things Can Only Get Better." But thanks for popping in, everyone. We got through another stream, another successful jaunt into a spew of fucking stream of consciousness from John. Thanks for coming along, and I'll see you next time. Maybe about 2 weeks, unless I've got another video out before then. In which case, another week after that. Alright? Oh, my computer's frozen. Once my computer unfreezes, I will stop the I'll stop the stream. Right. There we go. Alright, cheers guys, see you later. Oh, come on, end.